We hear songs, but most importantly, we watch our parents or our caregivers interact in their dynamic, and we learn how to be in a relationship intimately from watching our caretakers and the people around us. So if we didn't have good role models, or if we didn't have people that knew how to have relationships that were healthy, then why did I expect myself to know what a healthy relationship was? I had to be taught. So I'm going to teach you. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand the difference between a healthy relationship, a toxic relationship. You're going to have a blueprint for how to know if the relationship is worth salvaging or if you definitively need to leave it. Before we get started, I got to tell you, I'm not a licensed professional. I've done a lot of different therapy types, and I've just found DBT to be incredibly helpful for me. So I just want to pass on what I've learned and what I'm still learning about DBT in my own life in order to help you in yours. I'm a combat veteran. I deployed twice during the Iraq War, and before that, I had quite a childhood. Before that, I joined the military when I was 17, and I'm just now learning how to do relationships well, effectively, healthily, with safety and warmth in them. I'll never forget. I was sitting outside with my wife one evening. I think this was probably about 6 months ago, maybe a year. We were talking about relationships. We had just reconciled, we had been separated. And we were talking about what we want our new relationship to feel like for each of us. But then I asked her what a marriage is to her. What does marriage mean to her? I'll never forget it. It was the most incredible thing. And the way that she explained what our marriage means to her and what she wants it to feel like. She said, I look at our relationship the same way I look at a garden, but we're tending this garden together. You have your part, I have mine. And the garden only flourishes and thrives when we're both giving to it, tending to it, nurturing it, watering it, feeding it. What does a healthy relationship actually feel like? Well, it kind of feels like gardening, I guess, right? If it feels good, if it's healthy. What does that mean? If we've never had a healthy relationship before, how are you supposed to do that now? First thing is we bring everything that we have not processed. I mean, we bring what we've processed too in the form of our identity and personality, but our unprocessed history, trauma, events, feelings, we bring all of that with us into our partnership. And I also think I didn't understand what intimacy really meant. I thought intimacy just meant sex. I didn't realize that intimacy is kind of synonymous with vulnerability in a way, right? It's about showing up as your full self, being raw, being honest, being kind, but being who you are, being allowed to be who you are. But intimacy is like emotional closeness. It's the roots in the garden when it starts to grow. The intimacy are the roots that start to get tangled together, because that's how plants work, and go deeper down, right? There is vulnerability in intimacy. Of course there is. There has to be. But there's also mutual respect. And there are some hallmarks of a healthy relationship, and here are a few of them. Emotional safety, where you feel like you can think out loud, you can speak your thoughts and your feelings, and you can tell your partner about your day or what kind of internal dialogues you're having or how you're feeling about things. There's good communication, and that just means that we're listening to each other, that we're validating what we hear, even if we don't agree with it, that we are accepting the fact that we each have our own unique and individual experiences in this relationship. And that doesn't make either experience wrong or right. There's no such thing in a healthy relationship. There's no scorekeeping. And then when we do have conflict, that's been a real hard test for me personally. I'm a blow up kind of person. I'm not generally haven't been a stay calm while I'm having a lot of emotions kind of person. I'm not a stoic faced person. You can very much tell what I'm feeling and thinking probably from a lot of times whatever's going on the outside. And sometimes when it comes to conflict, my big feelings can come out as aggression. And that just makes my partner defensive, right? When I feel attacked, I get defensive too. So we've been working really hard at having conflict because it's natural and normal in any relationship, but finding resolution without cruelty, without name calling, without blaming, without shaming, without criticizing, without starting to go off the list of what all the other things that we're upset about, right? And I also understand now that having autonomy in a relationship is incredibly important. I didn't know that before. I thought that if we were in a healthy relationship, we were like this all the time, you know? But like two becomes one kind of thing. That is not actually true. That's actually pretty unhealthy. And independence within a relationship is so important because you want to be who you are. You're going to grow as a person. You're going to have your own experiences. A healthy relationship allows partners to have their own experiences, their own friends, their own thoughts, their own feelings without the other person involved. And it's okay to not tell your partner everything. Some things in your life are just for you. Or maybe you and a friend, who knows, right? Biggest thing is a healthy relationship should leave you feeling better about yourself. A healthy relationship should make you start to see the amazing things about you that you bring into this relationship, that you bring into your partner's life. I still have a hard time accepting the fact that I'm very loved in my family. I am. And it's a hard thing for me. I know it kind of probably sounds weird, but it's a struggle to accept the fact that I'm liked and my family wants to spend time with me. I didn't really have that before. It was a lot of closeness by distance, so no real intimacy, right? But there are lots of things that I do now that I didn't do before because I feel so much better about myself. A healthy relationship feeds into your self esteem, it helps build you up. It does not hurt you, it does not break you down, it doesn't diminish you and minimize you and dismiss you. No. A healthy relationship acknowledges all the people that are in it. So if a healthy relationship is this list of like safety and vulnerability and good communication, what is an unhealthy relationship? Yes, it's obviously, of course, the 180 of all of these things, right? But this is where it can kind of get a little messy, I guess, to know. Because when you love somebody and you've not had a healthy relationship before, you just kind of assume that's what relationships feel like and are and look like. But here's some warning signs. These are the things to look for. This is how you know. If you have a feeling inside where you're like, oh yeah, I kind of feel like there are red flags, here are the red flags. There are a few. Of course, there's control, right? Manipulation, lying, dishonesty, lack of transparency, lots of demanding of where you've been and where you're going and what are you doing and why and how long and with who and how you're going to get there, how you're going to get home, what'd you do while you were there, did you do this, did you do that. Wow. I wouldn't want to go out either if I had to deal with all those fucking questions after I got back from the grocery store or coffee with a friend. So if you're in a relationship and you feel like you can't just go and have a coffee with a friend without even telling your partner, I mean, that might be a flag. It might be. Only you really know, right? But generally speaking, in healthy relationships, partners don't need to check in constantly with each other about where they're at, what they're doing, when they're going to be back. Now, of course, if there's something going on, like, hey, there's a birthday party, where are you? You know? But generally speaking, if my wife wants to go have coffee with a friend, I mean, it's nice of her to tell me where she's going and with who. That's great, you know, but I don't demand information from her. That's not the kind of relationship I want to have. And then there's intermittent kindness. This is the one that's really dangerous, actually. So there's, and this is my experience with abusive relationships. There's intermittent kindness, which is kind of like love bombing and telling you how great you are, making you feel really good, maybe buying you a lot of gifts. That was a lot of what happened to me, a lot of gift giving in place of love, but it felt like love. The problem with this intermittent kindness, I mean, there's lots of problems with it. The one problem is that it creates a kind of addiction because instead of feeling loved for who I am, I'm working at getting approval and permission and then thinking that's love. But then if I don't get approval or permission, I feel very unloved, right? So the cycle is gross in that way. And it's also gross because it can make it much more difficult to leave the relationship when there are intermittent cycles of kindness, warmth, and love or affection, I guess. But if you never know which part of your partner is going to show up some one day, you're never going to feel safe talking to them about pretty much anything. That's how it was for me. I didn't realize that I wasn't so emotionally volatile that people did not feel safe talking to me about a lot of things. And that's something I'm still working on kind of repairing in my family, even. So we have to be careful about accepting these kinds of breadcrumbs of love and kindness and warmth and gifts and affection and thinking that that's now how the relationship is going to be. If it's only like that sometimes, it's never going to be like that all the time unless both people, all of the people, do a lot of fucking work to get to that point. When you're in an unhealthy relationship, you're not in an unhealthy relationship because you want to be in an unhealthy relationship. You're in an unhealthy relationship because you don't know either it's unhealthy or how to do any other relationship. And who wants to be alone? Right? Sometimes being in misery with somebody else and sometimes feeling kind of loved is better than just being alone. I get that. I totally get that. But I'm here to tell you that those relationships that are so unhealthy, where there's intermittent kindness, where there's abuse, or there's demeaning language or behavior or addiction or yelling or hitting or any of these aggressive, violent things, that does a lot more damage over time than just being alone. By staying in an abusive relationship, we're simply avoiding the inner work that we need to do to stop ourselves from getting into the same types of relationships. So we hear terms like gaslighting, right? Isolation of a partner, control manipulation. Yes, these are all indicative symptoms and behaviors of a potentially toxic, unhealthy relationship. Another sign of an unhealthy relationship is hot and cold behavior, where you feel really confused a lot. Like you don't know how something's going to be taken if you send a text, or things are taken in a sinister way or a way that you get in trouble almost, where there's some fight and now it's your fault. There's a lot of blame and a lot of criticism, a lot of, well, if you wouldn't have, then I wouldn't have, right? No, thank you. That is an unhealthy relationship. As adults, we are responsible for our actions, our behaviors, our words. Even if unintentionally we hurt somebody, we're still responsible, right? There's walking on eggshells, so feeling like you can't even be who you are. You can't actually communicate what you're really feeling without a lot of soft landings or buttering up, or maybe you just don't say anything at all. That is definitely a sign of an unhealthy relationship. Then there's a loss of identity. You don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what you like to do because you're so tired because of this relationship. What you did like to do, you don't like to do anymore. What does that mean? Right? Maybe you've lost friends because this relationship has taken a toll on you, or it's been controlling and you've been kind of disallowed to have these other connections. That's to keep you isolated. Now, the cycle of abuse seems very simple, but if you've been in unhealthy relationships, you know that it's very complex. Now, it looks a little something like there's tension in the relationship, right? Then there's an incident that happens. Everyone makes up, and there's a new honeymoon phase where the kindness and the affection come. Then there's maybe a period of calm, and then it starts all over again. And that's the relationship. Your relationships are simply patterns over a long period of time. That's what you're looking at. I mean, it's important to note how you feel in the relationship if, and also it's probably much more practical and effective to look at the long-term behavior of your partner or your friend, right? Why is it so hard to leave these unhealthy relationships? If they're so bad, why do we stay? Well, there's a lot of reasons. The first one that comes to mind for me is what's called trauma bonding. And essentially, what that is it's a deep bond that's created through connecting through these cycles of abuse. So there's Stockholm syndrome, right? And essentially, what happens is the victim falls for the kidnapper or the villain. So the longer this cycle goes on, the longer we stay because we're confusing those very temporary moments of affection and warmth and kindness for long-term love. And it's not. That's not what it is. And your brain then also gets rewired if you're in a relationship like this long enough. Your brain literally rewires itself because it's trying to survive a very threatening situation. That's just what happens. You start to get PTSD. You'll hear any kind of like a soda can pop open and you just freak out because maybe you just got out of an abusive relationship with somebody who drank a lot. And that sound just meant something bad was going to happen. And now you're like, oh my God, why do every time, somebody opens a can of soda or whatever, I freak out? And without understanding what the real psychological and physical tolls are of a relationship of this kind, we don't really know until we're out of it, actually, how much our system has rewired itself to survive. So, with all that being said, there are some situations where even if the relationship's been toxic or abusive, it is salvageable. That's what happened with me. It's been a lot of work to salvage it, but it's been totally worth it. But I didn't do it alone. My wife has done a lot of work too. Here are just a few signs of your relationship maybe being salvageable. Only you can determine that. There maybe as long as both partners take accountability and responsibility for their part and where the relationship is, that's the first step. Now you're not in denial anymore. You're both acknowledging, you have radical acceptance about the state of the relationship and how it got there. Then there's safe communication, which often means the help of a mediator. So a therapist or maybe a spiritual guide or something like that. Somebody more professional that can help teach both of you, all of you, how to communicate more effectively in your relationship. Because if you don't learn that, all of these old patterns will just keep eating away at what you're trying to do differently. And then there's no coercion, there's no criticism, there's no judgment, there's no abuse, there's no yelling, there's no cursing, there's no just slamming doors and walking away. At least there's effort to stop doing those things if they occur. Now, if you go through all of this and decide, yeah, I think this relationship is too toxic for me to stay in and be the healthiest version of myself that I love, how do you recover psychologically, physiologically from staying in a relationship that was unhealthy or being in one? There are a few ways. The first one is going to be self-validation, right? It's going to be acknowledging that what you went through is real and it hurt and it caused harm. And then you gotta work at replacing the self-blame. I shouldn't have stayed. Why did I stay? I should have left when. You have to replace that with, man, I did the best I could with the information that I had at the time. Do I wish I would have left sooner? 100%. 100% do I wish I would have left that relationship sooner, for sure. But who knows what would have happened, right? I don't know what would have changed. I had to stop blaming myself. I had to forgive myself for betraying myself and staying in a relationship that I knew I wasn't happy in. that I knew was bad for me. That took a lot of work. It took quite a bit of time. But then I was able to reconnect with myself. So once you leave a relationship that's unhealthy, you're kind of left with, oh, now what? Right? So you get to reconnect with who you are now. Of course, when we go through a relationship, we change as people. We change as people in life anyway. But after a relationship like that, you've definitely changed. And it's good to take time to reflect on what you can determine for now, the impact of the relationship and what it had on you. Sometimes the impact is much deeper and you won't know the full impact until later. That's kind of my case. But you can start to have an idea. And then you can rebuild your own autonomy, rebuild your identity, rebuild your independence. Go start to do things that you did once enjoy. Go find a friend and have that coffee. And don't worry about checking your phone because there's nobody who's going to be checking up on you. And then you got to rebuild your self-worth. And the best way, the most effective way to do that is with other people. I know I also don't like to people, but I can tell you hands down that being part of a group and a community that does love me and has seen me grow through all the things I've been through the last 5 years, that's been incredibly helpful for my sense of self-worth and self-identity. Before, I had so much fear and shame about who I was and who I thought I should be. And now, like, I love myself enough to tell somebody I don't talk to me like that, right? If I don't like the way they're talking to me, or I don't like that you did that, or that hurt my feelings. Like, I don't like I care about myself enough to stick up for myself now, but that took a lot of help from a lot of friends and family, right? And that's been incredibly helpful. I dove into some hobbies to help soothe my soul during the separation, and that's actually paid off in dividends. I'm still doing those hobbies now and I love them. And it's really helped my sense of self-esteem and self-worth to feel like I'm good at something. There's also spirituality, right? Like, if we're trying to rebuild who we are or get back in touch with who we are, I think a great way to get grounded into that is connecting with whatever, if you believe in a higher power. If you don't, you believe in the earth, right? Like, we're on it. You can get grounded there. You can go out in nature and let nature remind you of who you are. So healthy relationships are incredibly important. Having relationships is incredibly important, and knowing how to spot the red flags of an unhealthy relationship is really going to be beneficial moving forward as maybe you assess your own relationships and the future potential of friends and partners, right? All of this criteria applies across the board for any relationship, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a parent, a spouse, an uncle. Like, it doesn't matter. You should always be treated with respect and kindness, point blank. And I know that sounds simple, and I know that it's not. So that's what I got for you today. I hope that you learned a little bit about what to look for in an unhealthy relationship and how a healthy relationship should make you feel. I'd love to know what you think. You can always leave a comment down below. The engagement algorithm would really like that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. There's new videos every Sunday. And you can always check out my Substack for more information. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take good care of yourself.